Mm. So recording in progress. Kate
Yeah.
Jessop, you've just been directing, should I use that word, organising, hosting, putting together the very first ever Brighton International Animation Festival.
I have, yeah. So it was a festival that was over 2 days on 23rd and 24th of April in Brighton. So it was just a couple of weeks ago. And it was a 2-day event and it encompassed 12 different events. So there were specially created programs, also programs that I put together from open submissions. So I had open submissions from all over the world. I had like Czech Republic, China, Russia, as well as UK. And also I had animation workshop from Leo Crane from Figuration, who did a charcoal animation workshop. And I had industry talk from Jamie Badminton, who's a series producer of Carrot Animation, and animation karaoke as well for fun on the Saturday night.
Oh, that sounds really particularly fun. I definitely want to hear about that because I'm going to do that.
Yeah, no, it's super fun. So basically animation karaoke, I did nick the idea from a lot of Eastern European animation festivals, just to say. So they do it out there. So you find lots of clips of old vintage cartoons. So it could be like Betty Boop, or it could be Care Bears or He-Man or Scooby-Doo or whatever. And you play them with the sound down and you invite two people up onto stage and they've got to improvise their voiceover of the characters. So it could be maybe like a snake that's talking to maybe like Betty Boop or whatever. And two people have got to improvise the voiceover, not knowing what the clip, so they've never seen the clip before and not knowing what's about to come next. So it's just hilarious. It's kind of like an experimentation in ideation, I guess.
Yeah, no, I love that. I used to actually do that myself at experimental film
Oh, amazing.
particularly with cartoons, but just doing voiceovers. I remember
Yeah.
a huge one where my friend had done a really long, he surprised me with this really long image of a duck that didn't really do very much apart from hang out in this fountain, and then it flew away. So I was like, yeah, forced to sort of improvise the internal monologue of said.
Yes.
And
exactly. Yeah. Oh, hilarious.
but yeah, it's hilarious and great fun and a really good experience. I recommend it to everybody to have a go at that at least once. Cool. So that's a real varied sort of program of events. What made you want to do the actual animation festival? What was the big reason for doing it in Brighton? And where did it come from?
So my objective was I moved to Brighton last summer and I was like, why don't we have an animation festival in Brighton or on the south coast, so like Hastings, etc. I mean, there isn't really a big animation festival outside of London on the south coast, apart from like maybe like Bristol Encounters is the closest one, or maybe like Cardiff might be one of the closest ones. And as well, it was just to a certain extent a community building exercise as well. So in terms of just bringing lots of animators together, I mean, like animation festivals for me are always places where I meet people, so like potential collaborators. Also it brings up opportunities for people in terms of jobs or maybe just like making friends. So I think community is really important within animation culture. So initially I was like, oh, maybe I should set up like Brighton Animation Club, which is a little bit like London Animation Club that Martin runs in London. And I think I am still going to do that actually, which is like a monthly meetup in a pub where, as you know, where we all like screen our work in progress and to a bunch of animators and we get feedback, etc., and then just hang out and drink beer together. So that was my original kind of idea, which I probably will do. But then it just sort of like ended up being an international film festival, basically. But yeah, no, it was brilliant, and I feel like I did achieve my objective as well in regards to I met lots of animators from Brighton who I hadn't met before, and actually I do think it did put Brighton on the map as well in terms of showcasing a lot of international work.
Yeah, well, I think all those things just sound amazing and really the kind of thing that I'd be terribly interested in. I'm definitely coming next year if it's going to be there, hopefully show something. And how did you contact people to submit their work?
So I did it in quite a short turnaround, to be honest. So I only actually did open for submissions at the beginning of December, and then I closed it at the end of March. And then the festival was on at the end of April. So to be honest, the whole thing was a tight turnaround. I mean, this year I'm giving myself 2 months between the end of submissions until the start of the festival. So basically, I mean, I set it up on Film Festival Freeway, which is what you've got to do. So that's the directory for film festivals. So I put it on there, but in order for it to get sort of certified or validated, they won't accept you until you've got a website. So then I had to like learn how to use Wix, which I'm sure is like really obvious for a lot of people in that field. But so I had to like learn how to build a website. So I built a website to make it look like, you know, an official festival. Aligned it with Film Freeway, and then just posted on Instagram, to be honest. So I posted on Instagram to say that I was opening up this festival and I was doing call for submissions. I then posted on lots of different animation groups like London Animation Club and She Drew That and Panimation, etc. So I just posted within animation community, actually. So actually I was quite pleased. So I got 153 submissions over the 3 months that it was open, which I thought was quite good for the first year. And there was a lot of really like high quality submissions as well.
That's amazing. And were they from all over the place? Was it truly international in terms of people submitting?
Yeah. So you can see it listed on the website. So I had like Chile, Colombia, France, Italy, Germany, Asian countries. Like genuinely from all over the world.
And was it was new work particularly that people were submitting?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, new work. I didn't actually state it for the first year of submissions, but for this year I've put nothing before 2020.
Yeah, I think that's good, because we really want to see what people are making now, because everything's changing so fast. And I mean, even if something, maybe you release it now, it might have taken quite a few years to develop anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Time consuming to produce.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. What can you tell us about a couple of things that might have stood out? I mean, obviously it's going to be full of interesting things in all kinds of ways, but maybe we could pick out a couple of films.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there was one of the films that got special mention, which was it was an international collaboration. It's called Only Child. Sorry, is it called An Only Child? Only Child, the Only Child. I'll clarify the full name later. So it's directed by a Swiss Italian guy who's based in London, and it's based on a speech that a woman did in the 90s about climate change, basically. So it was a speech that she did about climate change in the 90s. He's animated this speech, and it's you know that I love my group animation, so it's kind of similar to what I was doing with the Queer Hero series. So each animator did a different section of the speech, but he directed it though. I mean, like with my collaborations, they've always been a little bit more kind of like loose and with a lot of artistic freedom. So he was saying in the Q&A, Simone, that he did make an animatic. He handpicked all the animators that he wanted to work on it. So it had a range of styles. It was like 2D digital, 2D hand-drawn, some like under the camera, rostrum stuff. And I think each animator did maybe like 10 seconds or something like that to animate a different part of the speech. And she's basically just kind of like warning about climate change and about the fact that something needs to be done. And this is, you know, in the 90s. And it's a kind of thing that we would hear now, but it was done then. And it's just absolutely powerful. It's just a really powerful animation. So that got special mention. So just to say, the judges that I made a point to have external judges to come on. So I obviously selected all the films and created the programs, but I thought I need somebody else to come in and award the prizes. So it's like another pair of eyes kind of thing. Yeah. And so even though I am picking that out as a significant film, that did get special mention in best international film. And then, what else? So in terms of like the female gaze program, so a lot of those films, so the vision of that was films that were either directed by a female director, either had a strong female protagonist, or were presenting the world through a female lens. So with that tackled quite a lot of quite important issues. So some of the films, so like the Many Faces of Ava was a film which is about how women often present different faces to society. So I thought that explored a really interesting issue. And then there was just a comedy piece called Sauna, which is about a woman's experience in a sauna, funnily enough. So I always like to get a bit of like comedy and lightheartedness in the programs. If there's some programs that are specifically can potentially tackle quite heavy issues, and because there's quite a lot of docs in those as well, and like, you know, animated documentary can sometimes explore quite challenging issues at times. And then Sound and Vision, that seemed to be one of the most popular programs. Actually, the best UK film came out of that. The best UK film and a special mention actually came out of that program. So that was the more kind of experimental, non-narrative films. So these were films that focused on maybe choreography or had a really strong musical backbone.
Did you, when you were doing the open call, did you state those groups, or did you make them up from what people had sent in? Was it a kind of way of organising the material afterwards, or?
Yes, the latter. Well, actually, initially, I was going to give awards for best narrative, best documentary, and best student, but I actually didn't have enough documentary. So Holly Merthyr, who was the judge in the end for best UK film, runs FAF, the Factual Animation Film Festival. And that film festival focuses on documentary and factual animation, so some explainer, etc. So I was like, oh my god, there'll be a great person to come in and judge documentary. But it was either narrative or music videos that I seemed to have in the end. So yeah, as I was watching it in my mind, I was sort of noting different themes, and there were quite a lot of films that came through that did present the female perspective, and just a lot of like music videos and choreography videos. So yeah, those kind of themes started to emerge as I was watching them. I mean, I think the themes are valid and important, and for some of the categories I might take forward for next year, but I also had a few rejected categories. Actually, one about climate change. I nearly programmed a program where, because there was quite a lot of films that came through about that were exploring climate change, but in the end I didn't quite have enough to fill 60 minutes, which is the objective. Then I had another one called Our Furry Friends, which afterwards I thought, does this sound like some kind of like category on Pornhub? I don't know. Which was lots of kind of more like animal based and anthropomorphic films. So yeah, I've got quite a few rejected categories as well.
And what about the experimental side, the bit where animation blurs with other, I guess things that people would be entering for other categories as well, like thinking about the climate change makes me think about that, because there's a lot of installation type work that crosses over into something that's part performative. How did you cope with that? Was it just, I mean, I guess it had to be things that were sent in as a film, as an already made film. So you're not going to have something that's also site specific at the same time, because of the complications. There's already so many complications involved in the festival. But I guess some of those works probably do cross over into other experimental categories.
Yeah. Absolutely. Actually, I'm looking to expand it further, potentially in the future, to potentially address this. In terms of the medium and the different categories, I would say this year it was more sound and vision that encompassed more experimental works. But again, we'll have to see what gets submitted for next year. I actually had a couple of people submit to me a live performance and music piece, and I want to get them in for next year. So like live projected animations with music. But in terms of for this year, I mean, it was the first year that I put it on. I wasn't quite sure what the setup, what the venue was. I mean, it's a brilliant venue. So we've got upstairs, which is sort of like chill out space, and we've got downstairs, which is where, so upstairs is a bar, downstairs is like the screening room and the stage. And it was just quite a tight turnaround. So in 2 days, I had 12 events, and I had literally like half an hour between one ending and then the next one. So there wasn't time this year to set up all the sort of like tech involved in doing some like live projections and performances. However, I would like to look into that for next year. And also, funnily enough, I was talking to Leo this week about maybe expanding upon having like a talk on how we can incorporate NFTs, or potentially as well on the upstairs part of the venue. I mean, obviously I'd have to speak to them about this. Maybe having an animation exhibition. Actually, something that I'm doing with my students right now is an AR exhibition. So what I'm getting them to do is to use the iJack app. I don't know if you come across that. It says iJack or Artivive. So it's where you have the artwork and it's a trigger image, then you go up with the app and it's animated. So again, this sort of multimedia approach, it's done quite a lot in a lot of the Eastern European animation festivals, so in like Slovenia, Poland, Bucharest, etc. So I always find that quite inspiring, because I mean, animation, it's not just screen-based watching something with a beginning, a middle and an end. It's there's so many different platforms for it, and that's what's exciting about it, and that's why I never stop loving animation, because there's always a new thing and there's always a new platform, or like there's always a new way that you can work with it. So I'm definitely interested, if the venue allows for it, to expand into more expanded cinema.
Yeah, and more live crossovers. We've already got that happening with the animation karaoke, but it's exciting, but it is a lot of work as well. And also the technical side of these things is always a huge challenge. We just did this performance involving live coding on the volcano.
Oh, wow.
And I went there with the creative coding Utrecht. It's actually quite fun. We heard yesterday we're going to Barcelona in July.
Oh, fun.
To redo it. I don't know how that will go, but obviously that's the whole point, is you slightly don't know, because you're going to partly put it together last minute because of in the situation, in the situ, because we're going to do it in a short time. But I mean, the technical things were difficult, and also the rehearsals one needs. We ended up, there was that great big storm, we didn't have our final performance anyway, so we only ended up with the final rehearsal we did. But it was technical all the time, so much time gobbled up by all those, how are we linking our projectors, our multiple projectors, have we got this connector, haven't we got it?
And right now it's just me running the festival, so once it grows and I get more people on board, I'll be able to sort of allocate different tasks to different people. So this year it was just me creating all the programs, emailing all the filmmakers, hosting all the events. So, but what was really nice at the end of the festival on the closing night, I was like, if anybody wants to do it with me, please make yourself known. So I've got 5 people that have come forward that want to work on it with me, which is wonderful. So it means, and obviously I had my volunteers. So I had some of my students who came down to it with me on the day, but there's a lot of prep work that goes into putting it in. I'm definitely up for that if I expand my team and have the facilities in place in order to undertake that.
Well, I'll offer, if I'm still, which I probably will be doing my show at Resonance, I'll offer, we'll do something in that way, definitely, at the very least, whatever that happens to be, whether we do something beforehand in the run-up, or whether we sort of cover it somehow, or combine in for a radio broadcast.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jude.
We'll muck in, because it's fantastic. I think it's utterly stupendous what you've put together in such a time, and it is knackering, and totally appreciate all the absolute work. I mean, people are tiring for me, I find. I've just been in a room of people is like, I want to let
I don't know. I thought it was really fun this year, and I think because it's one of the first festivals since the pandemic that's been a live event, I got quite a lot of the animators that came down. So I had a third of the animators come and visit the festival. So I programmed 60 and 20 came down. And actually it was really wonderful, just like having all these animators in a room. So if anyone's interested, if you go on the website and you look at past editions, and you'll see all the visitors and all the people that came, and there was a time upstairs on Saturday where the upstairs was just like packed, and it was like a room full of animators and people who want to learn about animation, and it was really wonderful. It's really fun.
Yeah, well, I'm up for the Brighton animation group as well, if that ever happens, because
okay,
why not? Because I love the London animation group, but now I'm on the South Coast.
Yes. Absolutely.
So yeah, and also the comic community in Brighton is huge as well. So many
Hmm.
people involved in that, and I might be able to drag a couple of mates from the graphic novel world in. And there's certainly a lot of overlap, isn't there, between animation and graphic novelists? A lot of people move
Absolutely.
the forms, and I think there's also, I mean, although you don't want people to have to sort of do the in-betweens on someone else's design, because that's a little bit like categorical as to what people's roles are, but there's certainly a way of, you know, getting animators to, like, maybe, I don't know, help graphic novelists work on ways of turning their graphic novel into like a short animation. I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, definitely up for that, Jude.
Yeah.
I'm a big comics fan. I'm actually, I've never done one, and everyone's like, "How have you not done a comic?" I'm actually sort of like planning my first comic at the moment, because I'm such a fan. Yeah, I'm such a fan of like graphic novelists and comic makers, and yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's such a relationship between both of the mediums.
Yeah, and you're such a drawer. I mean, I know animation doesn't have to be a drawing. There's so many ways of coming across it. But I mean, when we had our recent little exhibition with dirty postcards, your postcards, of which it looks like there's one behind you.
Yeah, yeah. So I have all my life drawings as my Zoom backdrop. So basically, I don't have to tidy up at home.
It's very clever. I'm going to do it next time. I don't know why I haven't got a backdrop. I saw your backdrop, but why haven't I got a proper backdrop in instead of just having my old bed? It's like, this is like so amateur. But then I don't normally record the video, but I've actually started doing that recently because of my because of YouTube. I'm using YouTube a bit more, and in actual fact, I'm saying to people, and I might say to you afterwards, are you okay if we put the rushes of the show up after the show goes out? And
Yeah.
that's have to answer that now, but that's what I'm sort of doing with people, just as an archive, really, because people will only go there if they want the material. It won't, you know, it will only be like really special interested people who want to who want to see the expanded rushes of Newsagent show. But
Yeah, no, up for it.
yeah, excellent. Well, I think I'd love to see your graphic novel in progress when you get around there. We can have a chat about that because yeah, I'll be starting my number 3 this, or continuing with number 3 soon. Yeah, and
Right.
I've
Yeah.
mine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be posting stuff in it on Insta. Yeah, I'm always holding down about 3 jobs at any one time. So it's just like whenever I get around to it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good luck with your, well, everything, your teaching, animation, and your own work, of course, which seems to, it must be important to keep that going through all this.
Yes, absolutely.
You'd like to tell us about that just before we finish?
Yeah.
On that.
So lots of folk will know me from the comedy series that I wrote called Tales from Pussy Willow a few years ago. So like quite a few folk have been asking me what's happening with that. So I took a massive break from it for a couple of years, but I'm actually going to do a relaunch, and it's going to be called something slightly different. So actually there has been quite a lot of behind the scenes stuff that's going on with that. So my main sort of interest, I guess, is like comedy as cultural commentary. That's the thing that I'm interested in. And so yeah, so that's what I'm developing behind the scenes on top of everything else that I'm also doing in the foreground.
Okay, but we can probably check out your archive of Tales of Pussy Willow. It'll be
Yeah. So
right.
there's a link to it from my Instagram, and there's also an archaic Facebook page just called Tales from Pussy Willow. So a lot of the old eps are on there. So it's about 5 years old now, and it won quite a lot of awards, and it went to the Berlin Alley Talent Lab. And but yeah, there's been a bit of a pause on it, and just quite a few folk have been asking me about that recently. So it is on the cards for the future. More eps.
Okay, thank you, Kate Jessop.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.